This is Life Lessons Lounge, and I am Igina Gerazi. Here, we explore diverse life stories and the wisdom they hold. Let's delve into the stories that shape us, teach us, and connect us all. I am so grateful to have had such a remarkable guest today, and it is Si Gong. It's a master teacher of Kung Fu. We talk about how he has overcome a troubled childhood, drug addicted parents, an abusive foster home, a live in drug rehabilitation facilitation, a cult, homelessness, alcohol and drug abuse, to becoming a ninth degree black belt of Shaolin Kung Fu. He's a master teacher, and his school now has 4 branches around the world. He's also a public speaker and storyteller and spoken word artist who has made his home now in Lisbon, Portugal. This is an incredibly enriching story and lessons. And what he shares with us about his journey is such a powerful reminder of the human spirit's resilience and the capacity for transformation and the power of choice. I'm so deeply thankful. And I hope you really enjoy this and get the most out of this episode. Thank you for being with us. I'm seeing this frame behind you and I'm trying to read it. What is it?
Yeah. So this was actually my grandmother. She hand stitched this for my wife and I on our as a wedding gift, and
Beautiful.
it has the quote from Kahlil Gibran,
Huh.
and it says, "Give your hearts, but not into each other's keeping, for only the hand of life can contain your hearts. Stand together, yet not too near, for the pillars of the temple stand apart, and the oak and the cypress grow not in each other's shadow."
That's so beautiful. I know
Yeah, and it's
I've read his book. It's amazing.
a beautiful guide for our marriage. Because I think in marriage, you tend to impose yourself on the other and not give them room to breathe and be themselves. It's just kind of unconscious in a way. And this idea that, oh, it's my wife, oh, it's my husband. And we start trying to control each other and fix each other up the way we want them to be. And this, of course, leads to divorce.
But did you know this thing before you got married, or did you learn it after?
I learned it after. Yeah, I didn't know about it at all because, of course, we fall in love. And the fairy tale tells us that love will take care of everything and we're going to live happily ever after. And we forget that when we were in love, we're in this intoxicated state and we are seeing only the best in the
Yeah.
other, but also we're on the drug of them seeing the best in us. And it's so nice to see yourself in this light where you're just nothing but wonderful.
True, true.
And after the drug wears off, then suddenly you go, oh, you brought a lot of luggage with you. There's something behind the scenes of this wonderful person. And so as you begin unpacking that, we often get scared. You're not the person that I signed up for. I didn't want to deal with all this. And so that drives you apart. But to me, true love is the conquering. And what I mean by conquering is being able to look into the shadows together and release them and being able to love the whole person as they truly are, not the image that you fell in love with when you first started.
How beautiful.
Yeah.
And you also have 5 children together.
We have 5 children, yes, sprinkled all over the United States,
That's beautiful.
and three
That's amazing.
grandchildren. Yeah.
And your story, Sigong, it's a lot about conquering those shadows that you were talking about now. So, would you take us a little bit back to where it started? Because I know it's an impressive story.
Yes, I will. First of all, to say that I was born to two parents who were lovely, wonderful human beings, but they were also drug addicts, heroin addicts. And so they weren't able to take care of me and my brother in the way that parents should because their preoccupation was with drugs. So often we didn't have food, sometimes we didn't have shelter, sometimes we didn't have the basic things of life, but also we didn't have the attention and love of our parents. It's not that they didn't love us, it's just that their primary concern was about getting drugs. So often I remember as a baby boy, no one being there. And there's a lot of stories that my mother told me where I would just leave the house and walk down the street and get lost and later be picked up by neighbors or someone else, and the police would bring me back home. And my mother always told me these stories almost as if they were humorous stories. And as I grew up, I started, wait a minute, that was messed up. Like I'm a little boy, somebody was supposed to be taking care of me. And so that first chapter, which is the first 4 years of my life, um, the the identity that I got from that is abandoned. The identity was, oh, I must not be worth it. I must not have been worth enough for my parents to love me enough to give up drugs and take care of me. So that's a message that's not true. It doesn't mean I am worthy, but it sends you the message as a child because you've been abandoned that you're not worthy.
Hmm. So that's the lesson that you learn in that first period of your life, right? Being owed.
Yes, I think the positive aspect of being abandoned and left alone, which you don't feel it as a child, of course, because you just want to be loved. But as I look back, one of the positive aspect is I learned to be alone and to be okay being alone. And I found something inside of me that gave me peace. I was able to play. I was able to use the imagination of a child and create worlds and to feel a presence that comforted me because there was no one there to comfort me.
Hmm. How resourceful as well as a kid.
Children are amazing. And later, when I grew up, I ended up having a school and teaching children. And the resiliency and the power that children possess. You know, it's so sad that we say, oh, honey, it's just your imagination. You know, come to the real world because the imagination is the most powerful thing we have as human beings, and it's alive and active in children. And they say that I think something like 90% of kids identify themselves as creative up to 8 years old. By 12 years old, it's 50%, and by 18, it's down to 20%. We relegate this idea of imagination as people who are skilled at art or other things, but all human beings possess imagination. And it's one of the great gifts of being human, and it's alive and active and well in children. And part of my work later with children was to point them to the incredible resources that live within them just based on who they are, and to build their self esteem on that rather than building their self esteem based on performance.
Hmm. And what impresses me in your story, because, well, I know your story and I hope you can share as well with all the watchers, it's really that resilience and that power of choice that from being born and raised to a family like that to really becoming a kung fu master,
Yes.
right? So, what are the highlights that changed the trajectory of your life?
Well, let me say that because of my upbringing with my natural parents, uh, my mother saw the desperation of our situation and she tried to commit suicide and but was unsuccessful. And after she reflected on what had just happened, she realized that she was in trouble and therefore we were in trouble. And so she put me and my brother in a foster home. She gave us over to the state and we were put in a home. And in the home we were in, they were a religious family who believed in the concept spare the rod. Spare the rod, spoil the child. So they were under the idea that there were demons in you just by being born. And so then they beat us for nothing more than being us. And this is the period of time I call the identity I got was abused, but it also leads you to this sense of unworthiness, which is there's something wrong with me because I'm being beaten for just being me, for just being a child. Like they beat you if you were naked, they beat you for bodily functions, they beat you for things that you said. I learned in time not to say anything. And that's where I actually became silent. Don't worry, I'm not silent now. I'm making up for lost time. But they also did all this in the name of God. And what I find interesting, of course, all these insights are me looking back. At the time, I was just trying to survive the onslaught of the world and to figure out what was going on. What was very apparent to me is the adults don't know what they're doing and they're not trustworthy and scary because they're the ones leading me, they're the ones taking care of me. But what I find interesting is that rather than saying there is no God, I ended up saying they don't know who God is.
Mm. Oh, with such wisdom, even as a
And it
kid.
kept it alive in me. It kept, I have this connection, but they obviously don't know anything about it because the demon was not in me. The demon, I saw it in the eyes of the foster mother when she was beating me. Then my mother came and got us, and we were taken into a live in drug rehabilitation facility, which is where she went for help. And that became a cult. And so I wasn't a drug addict, but I was into this. I got taken into this community, and they had a school, and I was separated from my mother. And this is what I call programming that you have to be one of the group,
Mm.
right? And then what happens when you give up your individual identity to become one of the group? And by the way, horrible things happen. Cultism itself isn't only relegated to small fringe groups that form communities. We can see it actually throughout human history, what happens when we become group identified and think that it's okay to hurt and destroy the others. So that was the lesson of, of that part of my life, which is the power of being an individual as compared to trying to fit into a group. When I was 12 years old, my mother left the, uh, the place of drug uh, facility and drug rehabilitation facility. And when I came out into the outer world, I was the outcast or the misfit because my life story was like I didn't fit in. Nobody knew. And so I was automatically ostracized, picked on, bullied, and all those other things. And so I felt that I didn't belong. But the positive side of that is you end up finding out, but I do belong to myself.
That's really beautiful because if all that conditioning, right, like all the time, the world telling you something different, like how did you preserve that inner strength and that inner light to believe that I belong to myself?
I think that, again, as I look back, the blessing of being isolated, which I don't recommend, of course, I don't think this is good for children. I'm not advocating it. But we can also look into the harsh realities of our life and we can find blessings in them. And in this case, again, I learned to rely on myself. I learned to rely on my inner connection to guide me through the life. When everything wasn't okay outside of me, I went inside for things to be okay. And for example, when I was in the drug rehabilitation community, they pound you with slogans from morning till night, so you don't have time to think for yourself. And maybe at that point, I felt like I was drowning.
Mm.
So I, as a teenager, got up at early in the morning, 2 hours before we were due to get up. And I would spend time just sitting, meditating, and reading. And it was in that time that I was able to see, oh, this is the ideas they're saying aren't true. They're conditioning or brainwashing us. And so I kept alive my perspective. And eventually, when the time came, when I say I was a teenager, after I had gone out and felt so ostracized, I voluntarily went back because all my friends were there. And then I saw, and also the cultism had evolved to such a high level. And, I don't want to get sidetracked by all the horrible
Mm.
stories, but they're also quite interesting. but but I found the strength and the courage to challenge the group and to I didn't just leave. I just didn't run away. I said this is wrong, and I stayed for a period of time, and I finally left. And this process is what I call the butterfly needing the struggle of the cocoon to
Mm.
gain its strength to find its wing. And
Yeah.
it's sometimes challenging group mentality and other people judging you or telling you what to be, and you going inside and finding out who you truly are and emerging from that gives you the strength to be who you are in the world and get on with your destiny, which is basically to fly from flower to flower and pollinate and make the world a much beautiful, much more beautiful place.
That's beautiful. So from that, then you moved on. So what happened then after you went out of this cult?
Yeah, so I was out in the outer world, and eventually I went back, and then I got back out, and I didn't really fit in, and I convinced my mother to let me join a walk across America for disarmament and social justice, which was a real eye opener. I was on the trail with Japanese monks who were protesting what happened in Hiroshima,
Mm.
and they would beat drums along the path, and they would do acupuncture points to relieve the pain and stress of the walking during the day. And they had this very Zen mentality. Um,
Sorry, is that the first introduction to kung fu?
there was that, and then when I was a boy, when I say boy, about 13 or 14, there was a television show called Kung Fu, and it explored the philosophical and spiritual side of Kung Fu. And when I watched that show, it was like a light because I didn't see much in the world that made sense to me. But this character who had attended this temple totally resonated with me. And it was the first time I thought, there's hope in the world. There's something, there's a way, there's a path that we can get through this. So meeting these Japanese Zen monks was a confirmation of that. And yet my deeper discovery of it was still on the horizon. I went through a time of being homeless, and after being homeless and realizing my life was going nowhere, I joined the military. And I think in the military, the conflict between me and this authoritarian, because I was very rebellious, I didn't want to be told who to be and how to fit in. And so that clash brought up all my anger. And I became very violent and very destructive. And I started using drugs and drinking and vandalizing and just being violent in ways that weren't true to my nature. Uh, when I was finally released from the military, I joined a riot in San Francisco, and I was arrested and put in jail. And while I was sitting in jail, I was going through all my ideas about revolution and rebellion. And suddenly, while I was sitting, I saw how all it's like they gave me a movie reel of the world's revolutions. And I saw how every revolution and group of revolutionaries somehow, when they get into authority, repeat the same mistakes of the authority or regime that they opposed or overthrew. That every ideal, in other words, is open to human corruption. And so this way, we keep going around in circles. Right after I saw that, I just sat quietly and I heard this voice, and I would mark it as the first time I heard the still small voice in my heart. And it said, "This time it will be a revolution of consciousness." And I was 18 years old, and it hit me like a lightning bolt.
Wow.
I was like, why didn't I think of that? A revolution of consciousness. All this violence is getting me nowhere. They're going to throw me away. I'm going to end up dying. Nobody will care. Or I'll be in jail and nobody will care. And so I said, okay, that's it. I'm done with this revolution uh, based on violence. I'm going to go seeking this revolution of consciousness. And within 6 months, I found myself at the footstep of my teacher, at the feet of my teacher in this small basement in San Francisco. And it was looking at him. As soon as I saw the place and him and what he was teaching, I go, this is it. And then I said, you need to roll up and learn what being taught here. And plus, it had the kung fu thing, so I was like, I was in. And but the most important thing that happened when I first met my teacher was he looked at me, and he didn't see the abandoned, abused, program, outcast, homeless, rebel, all of the story that I came to believe in myself that I was. He saw the person that was living inside me, who had an unlimited potential as a human being. And he gave me this smile like, oh, you believe that story. You don't know who you are yet, but I see you and I know who you are. Come follow me, and I'll lead you back to your own heart so that you can be who you truly are and who you were meant to be in this world.
Wow, what a moment. It's really powerful. And and to me, what's even more powerful is you listening to that inner voice inside. Really, it's very, very powerful.
Yes.
That you haven't, as I also said before, it's like even everything that has happened, you haven't lost that trust and that innocence inside to really see who you are.
Yeah, and it's become foundational to me and to the way that I lead my life. I wouldn't have it any other way. But it's also been part of my message to others. Um, and I would say, although this message seems so simple and clear, it's very difficult actually, because we're such a product of people, circumstances, and events conditioning us to who we believe we are. And the reason I said that it was somewhat of a blessing, my upbringing, and that I often notice that it's more difficult. And also, you have to have a desire to want to seek this deeper self and the guidance of this deeper self. If you don't want it, it's fine, because you're learning lessons that you need to learn on the surface of that. So I don't come with this insistent that everyone has to pursue this. But the blessing is that my outer reality and who I taught I wasn't acceptable. I couldn't really survive like that. So I had this desperation to seek something beyond that. And I think often people will uh, uh, go seeking what they want from the world and who they are and who they can be in the world. And they won't give up on that until they come to the end of their rope. And then they say, there's got to be something more. And that breaks you down to go, okay, I haven't tried looking within yet. Let me try that. And in particularly, one of my teacher's first teaching, because we did meditation, but not meditation for meditation's sake. We did meditation so that you could actually awaken this self that's beyond your conditioned mind. And so one of his teachings was go into the temple of your own heart and find the master within, and your connection to the universal great one were the words that he used. So I was already predisposed to be able to go within, but that instruction made me go deeper. And at first, this place within my heart was a refuge from the storm of the world outside. But in time, I found that it was a source of guidance also, that that same still small voice would whisper and show me the way. And this is what I ended up calling the master within. But I at first thought it was a master outside of me. And in time, I found out that it was my higher self or my true self showing up to the one who was the seeker, the disciple who was, hey, I need wisdom, I need truth. I go, hey, wait a minute, that's me. And that it is connected to something greater. Um, and that's why it's so reliable. But I would say that that process, and it took time also, because you go through a back and forth with your mind and your emotions and your desires, and you're fighting your shadows, and all these things come up. And so it was like a 10-year battle for my soul.
Exactly. That was I was wondering is like how did you manage it seems like 180-degree change, right? And transformation.
Yeah.
So how was that process? And also because you also mentioned before the violence, the anger, like everything was inside of you.
Yeah. I had a lot of demons to face, and demons is just a catchphrase for this.
Mm.
These shadows, I call the shadows that arise from our woundedness. And so, since I was wounded a lot, I had a lot of wounds and then a lot of emotional and psychological reactions to things that happened in the outer world. They tapped in, they hit the places where I was hurting, and it would cause these violent anger, acting out kind of thing. Luckily, with Kung Fu is about discipline and practice and doing something over and over again. And it's a physical metaphor for the mental and spiritual journey that we can take. But one of the things that we say is that you become what you practice. So you're not born knowing how to do kung fu. You don't know how to throw a punch. You don't know how to throw a kick. So you try again, try again. You keep getting better. And once you get it in your mind how to do it correctly, there comes a higher level, I call it the spiritual level, where your mind and body already know what to do. So you get out of the way and it just flows through you. It's effortless flow. And this is what we would call mastery. But it's the same with cultivating yourself. It's a practice. You show up again. Yesterday, I tapped into this place where I felt nothing but bliss, and I thought, okay, I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life. And then all the day happens, and people trigger you, and then you go, oh, I'm a mess. And so, but will you come back the next day? And will you come back the next day? The same perseverance that I showed in becoming a Kung Fu master is the same perseverance that I needed to show towards mastery. What's the effortless flow of just being yourself? Of course, first you have to find yourself as you truly are. And then you begin to express yourself with fits and starts. But just like your kung fu is fits and starts, eventually you start flowing, and then eventually it becomes, oh, this is who I am. There's, I don't have to try to be good. I don't have to try to be disciplined. I don't have to try to be kind. It's now just my nature. I don't have to avoid being mean. I left that on the highway a long time ago. Right? But it's because I wanted that something more. It's because I wouldn't give up. I was knocking on the door, and I'm not going to go away until you answer. I'm asking, and I'm not going to go away until I receive. Right. And so your perseverance to want that greater truth, and in this case, it's not a truth outside of you; it's a truth within you, is what eventually delivers you.
That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. Thank you, Si Gong. So, how long did it take you to become a Kung Fu master and get the ninth belt?
The the simple answer is about 20 years. Of course, you never really know, like, especially in terms of master, like, when did I, quotes, become a master? And in a way, I like the word mastery better than the word master, because we're always looking for this end date.
Mm.
And I feel we're always growing and evolving into that something more on the horizon. And when I first got the title, Si Gong, which means master teacher, I was really uncomfortable because it's this idea is like I'm a master of teaching, or I'm a master of kung fu, and I always knew, well, I'm still learning. I'm always learning, and I got a nickname. I got a meaning out of it that clicked for me. Is rather than master teacher, it's teacher of masters.
Mm.
And so what I came to see was, in being in this role of teacher, I'm in this role to give the students, the young masters that come before me who don't know they're a master yet, the tools by which they can actually accomplish and awaken the master that's living within them. And this master is an inherent potential in every human being, but not every human being is conscious of it or aware of it. And so you need tools to awaken it, for it to come out and express itself through your lives. And so, in terms of the ninth degree, I always told my students the secret is not quitting, because once they go to give that degree, who's still left in the room? And there's only one person there, and they go, "Well, it goes to you because you never quit."
Oh, oh, that's a lot of humbleness. But Zigong, so you have created schools for children to
Yeah.
learn kung
So
fu.
what I what I probably loved the most in my um, career as a kung fu teacher uh, was working with children. And I think it's because of the way that I was wounded as a child,
Mm.
and also how difficult it is to be a child in this world. And then I would extend that all the way to all the stages of childhood, up to and through being a teenager. It's not easy. And I know it's not easy. But one of the reasons that I feel that it's not easy is because we start with this preposition, who are you going to be when you grow up? And so that lets you know that, first of all, you're not somebody already. And second of all, it's what you do and accomplish that will signal your value to yourself and the world. That's how you build your self esteem, is through accomplishment. By the way, I'm not against accomplishment. I think it's ridiculous to sit around and be lazy and not do anything. But if we could start that there was something inside of you that was valuable, rather than say, who do you want to be when you grow up? I think it's wiser to say, who are you now, and how can we find a way for you to be that in your life. And so at some point, I came to the idea that all my teaching was not based on teaching kids who they were or how they should behave or tell them that they're good or bad or any of those things. That my teaching would be based on questions. And I would ask them questions and I would ask them to go in their heart for the answers. Not the answers your parents told you, not the answers you're learning in school, but the answers that are here in your heart. Many people will tell you that your heart will lead you astray, but I believe the opposite. People who tell you that your heart will lead you astray will lead you astray. And, anyways, it was an experiment because I believe that that same wisdom, the three things I found in myself were love, wisdom, and creative power. And if you can find those three things, you'll build what I call a true self esteem. And the creative power means you'll begin to create and build a life that's a reflection of who you find yourself to already be. And it will be just as beautiful and powerful, and you'll have accomplishments and all the other things that everyone else in the world does, but it'll be coming from your true and authentic self. So when I would ask these kids these questions, when they gave me their answers, which, whoa, they were really wise, then I would just bow to them. And I wouldn't say anything else. And so what that does is they start to notice, wow, there's something inside of me that I can rely on. And that's what I call it builds true self-esteem. It's the self-esteem of the heart, of knowing who you truly are and believing in that. Because we should all know that your accomplishments and your acquisitions in life will come and go. They're not steady. Yes, it's great. Okay, you won. But also next year you may lose. Yeah, you got the girl, but guess what? Now the girl left you for somebody else, or guy, or whatever. So the
Yeah.
point being is, yes, you built this empire, but also a tidal wave comes and takes it down. So if we know that the primary essence of our value is in ourself and who we are, then we can have the joy, the joy of victory and the agony of defeat, and just let life season us without demanding to control life and have it only be, I only want success. I only want everyone to treat me this way. If I treat people kind, everyone should treat me kind. And then we all find out, oh, they don't. Even though I treat them kind, they didn't treat me kind back. But if you know who you are, this won't hurt you as badly. It still hurts, of course, but the point being is also we're passing through. And I
Mm.
believe the ultimate thing you'll take from life is the character that you build. It's who you are through the experience of life, not what you built outside of yourself. As I'm getting older, I found out I don't do kung fu as well as I did when I was in my 20s, 30s, 40s, even. And that's because it's time to pass the torch. It's time to coach other people to the beauty of them finding this grace and power in their body. You don't have to hold on to things forever. It does. I'm not a better person because I can jump higher, or run faster, or punch harder. The Those are nice accomplishments to be the best that you can be, but to accept who you are inside of that is actually the greatest gift.
I'm so touched, and it's so inspiring, so powerful what you're saying, and it's so humbling also the mission that you're doing with the school and working with the children to build the future. I'm in deep gratitude of that. Yes. So now coming back to the schools, so you have 5 schools around the world, right?
Four.
Or
I don't want to exaggerate my whole life. It's not about the numbers.
no, it's not. And still,
Any day
still
there could be a fifth one popping up somewhere. So.
no, it's the legacy that you're creating.
I sure hope so, but here's the point about legacy from my perspective is I found something in my life that enriched my life and made my life better. It's a gift that's always going to be with me now. But in finding it, I didn't want to just keep it for myself. I wanted to share this possibility with others. And so I have and continue to create programs and avenues or vessels where if a person is interested, they could find these, what I would call inherent blessings within themselves. But whether or not they do is not related to me.
Yeah, of course.
And so my value doesn't increase depending on the result going forward. Uh, Many of my students did find the blessings of what I have been teaching within themselves in their own creative way, in their own, and their expression of it is also creative. There's not like the way. It's not like one way fits all. It's organic. It expresses itself through you as you. It expresses itself through me as me, and that's part of that beauty of this path to me. And so when they have shared with me their joy and their discoveries and the way that their life has gotten better and the way they're creating a life, because it's strange, we can create ourselves, we can create our relationships, we can create our life, and we can create the work that we do in the world. Again, it goes back to imagination. Access it. You're not stuck just being what everyone is telling that you have to be or that you already are. Yeah, the evidence suggests that, but recreate,
I love
recreate your.
that advice. Yeah. Recreate, connect to your imagination. And it also feels, coming back to the power of choice, like it feels like you always have a choice. And it's also this connection deep inside within yourself. So find that truth.
I believe so. There's people who argue philosophically that we don't have a free will, and so I say to those people, get away from me because I'm busy using mine. And I like this saying that says, those who say it can't be done should get away from those who are doing it. Um, uh, so yes, I believe that we can create our lives and that we can make a choice. And again, the choice is the most important thing. If everything that I said to someone seems ridiculous and they're making a whole series of other choices, I only humbly bow. It only actually proves my point. You get to create your life the way you want to, and it can have nothing to do with what I'm saying. And I'm fine with that. I think one of the problems I see is that when we come to any answer, when people come to an answer, they think, and it works for them, they automatically think, oh, everyone has to start living like this. No, they don't. When you find the diet that works for you, give people room to find the diet that works for them. When you find the cause that's worth fighting for, fight it, but don't insist. Other people have other causes, and we need a myriad of causes to be addressed in our world. So let them have passion for their cause. It's all working together like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. But yes, I'm very happy that some of my students went on and to creatively create the same type of environment that I created in our school for 20 years in Tucson, Arizona. We It ended up being called the Dojo of Love because I think the primary value for all humanity is love, and yet even that is not that simple. It's a journey growing into what I would call a greater love. But I'm very happy and proud of my students who are getting the blessing of then nurturing other young souls. And this type of message, where you kind of just mirror to another human being the beauty of who they are until they themselves can see it, uh, I'm just so happy that there's places where that's being shared in the world, uh, because it's so necessary. And then the other thing that I definitely want to mention, because it was also uh, part of my wanting to make the wrongs of my own life right, is I created a program within our kung fu or martial arts community called Girl Power. And it came out of me watching my mother get abused by my stepfather when I was growing up, and then her not seeing that this was not love and that she deserved better than that, and that no matter how many times that I attempted to save and rescue her, she would go back to her abusing husband, which was very painful and difficult. And left me very confused also as a young man. And then I had four daughters, so I wanted them to not only learn to protect and defend themselves, but to understand on a psychological and spiritual level the beauty of what you're worth, and that this idea of being treated less is not love, and that you can put up boundaries of respect, but you have to start with respect for yourself. So my program Girl Power was physical learning to find your power and feel your power, but was filled with messages about you're beautiful, you're special, you're smart, you're strong, so that a girl could believe this and grow into the woman that then wouldn't have to enter into abuse and get psychological counseling after, which of course is the right thing to do, and all of it's not necessarily preventable. But the point being is the way the world still conditions girls and women is still a frontier that we have to move beyond to really find this equality. So I'm also happy that that's going forward in the schools.
Thank you from all the women and the girls in the world for doing that work. Thank you
Yeah,
so much.
and also I want to say, and they're also doing the work in so many ways of approaching these basic primary issues that are a continual struggle for human freedom and liberation. I believe ultimately, though, yes, we want to see outer change, but a lot of the transformation has to come from within.
Yeah. So, will you write everything in the book that you're writing?
No, I'm not going to write everything. I want to
No.
leave mystery so they'll buy the next one. No, it's actually one of the things that I've been wrestling with, because, first of all, my teacher was so generous and shared with me so much knowledge and wisdom that I wanted to say everything at once. And so I've really had to learn to calm down and to just say this part and say a little. I'm still working on that. I like to make a joke. It's like I'm cursed, born long winded in a generation with a short attention span.
Well, thank you so much for that generosity. Well, people can have the choice to listen and rewatch this again and again to get the gold of your messages.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Yeah. And like I say, I'm making up for lost time because I spent a lot of my childhood being quiet, and it was quite a struggle for me to learn to uh, speak in front of people and get my voice. So now I'm trying to use it for the good.
mm. So what about now? Are you still practicing kung fu?
So I've made a transition. So my teacher passed away about 5 years ago, and that I wanted a way to honor his legacy and the things that he taught me. But I also have made a choice that my life now is about writing and messaging the things that I learned, rather than what we might call the 10,000 hours in the dojo of learning Kung Fu, which I loved passionately, but it was time for me to move on and pass also to my students to become teachers. And so I created a Tai Chi and Qigong form
Mm.
that includes the best of the best of what my teacher taught me. It's not the full comprehensive kung fu, but the Tai Chi and Qigong form um, is includes breathing, it includes sound, it includes energy work, and it unfolds a journey of connection or harmony with oneself and nature. So I'm teaching that. I also have an online course that's called Inner Awareness Mastery, and I'm teaching that to people collectively, but also one-on-one sessions online. Um, and and then I'm writing my books. The first book that I'm writing is The Master Path: Awakening to the Master Within, which has been highlighted in this interview. So, finding a way to put the fruit of my life out into the world where it can nourish others.
Mhm. And as well, the Toastmasters part,
Mhm.
where we both met. And
Yes.
Si Gong is also my mentor, which I'm very grateful for. Super grateful. And you're also third round now in the competition, right? So now it's
Yeah.
district level.
I think it's area going to district, but don't quote me
Yeah.
because I'm just showing up and
Neither
giving
me.
the best speech that I can give at the time.
You're a master storyteller and speaker. Yes.
Thank you, thank you.
And I'm so grateful for all the teachings that you're giving me and everyone else. And I also wanted to ask for your advice in terms of to people who feel stuck. And what advice would you give to them?
Well, when we think of feeling stuck, it suggests I'm not able to move. I'm stuck. I can't take action. So, my first advice is take action. And you might say, well, what if I'm afraid? Yes, definitely. Take action in the face of your fear. And that's where something like Toastmasters becomes such a godsend to people, because it's a place that you can take action on your fear to speak in front of people. And taking action on that fear is what also, without all my philosophy and teachings and everything else, it takes you on a journey back to your own voice, which is back to your own power, shedding the fear of judgment of others and standing up and telling your truth. Your truth is valid. It doesn't. Nobody has to give you a stamp. No, it's my truth. I experienced it. I'm sharing it with you. I don't need your permission. And so that process starts shedding the fear so that you can awaken and be who you truly are in the world. Because the only thing stopping you from doing that is this fear of judgment, but also related to the fear of judgment is a self judgment, which I'm not worthy. Look at the lessons. I'm abandoned. I'm abused. I'm programmed. I'm outcast. I'm homeless. I'm not worthy to be here in this world. And you look and see that most people' primary motivation to fit in is because in the core they don't believe they're worthy. And whether the person's quote a winner or a loser, they're reacting from the same psychological root. The winner constantly has to prove it because
Mm.
they don't feel they're worthy. And the person who just kind of feels like a victim and constantly confirms their victimhood comes from the root. See, I've told you I wasn't worthy. The way you find your worthiness is to begin to speak up and to begin to talk. I went to drama classes when I started Kung Fu because I realized it's great that I can punch, but I'm not going to be able to be a teacher if I can't talk. So I'm going to go and face my fear and stand in front of people and have to express myself in front of people. So I always say this, that it's okay to be afraid. I'm still afraid to this day before I take the stage. But I just look at my fear and I say, I see you, but you're not going to stop me.
Love it. It's so comforting to hear from a master speaker. So, any last thoughts, Sigang?
I love people. I think my fellow human beings are amazing. Some see it and some don't see it. But I would continue to live in this world to point you to what is amazing inside of you, and help you to see it so you can be who you truly are, and so that you can live a life that's based on expressing the rare and unique gift that you have to give the world. I call it giving the gift of yourself. You don't want to leave this world without giving the gift of yourself. But that gift is often hidden inside, and we need to bring it up so you can get it out and give it. So that life is not so much about getting what you think you're missing, but giving the treasures that you already find that you have within your heart, so that you know who you are, you know why you're here, you know what to do, and you know how to do it. And this, to me, is the ultimate successful life. When the life was an expression of your authenticity as a human being. And we're all working on it. I work on it. Everyone's working on it. So it's not about judging yourself or measuring up or it looks so good for them. Too many, oh, look at me, look at me. Oh, I'm doing great. Oh, they must be doing better than I am. No, it's about where you are today and always taking little steps forward. If you take those little steps before you know it, you've gone on quite a journey, and then you can wake up and take the next step tomorrow.
Oh, Si Gong,
Mhm.
I'm so touched. First, it's thank you. I'm in deep awe and gratitude of your wisdom, your love, your light, your journey of transformation, your resilience. It's really a remarkable proof and testimonial of really what transformation and what power of choice is, and what power of light and love as well. So thank you. Thank you for doing
I'd like to
everything.
say one last thing, that all the things that you mentioned that are within me, the love and the light. Uh, the reason that you recognize it is because it's in you.
Thank
And I remember that I went back at one point to my teacher when I had kind of grown into what it was like 20 some years later. I'd already started my school, which was a branch of his school. And I said, I want to thank you because that well that was springing up from your heart that I thought only came from you, you showed me that it was also living in me. And now I can nurture other people out of these same waters and point them to the fact that that same well lives in them. And I said, so I just want to thank you. And he said, don't thank me, thank yourself because you chose. It goes back to what you said about making a choice. And it's choosing to act on the love and light that's already within you and to never give up on it. And just the other day, I was reflecting on that. And when I reflected on it, I said, oh, what I saw in him was in me all along, even at the moment that I first saw him. But he was just waiting for me to see it in myself.
Exactly. I have tears. Thank you. Thank you for being with us in the Life Lessons Lounge. Remember, every story has its wisdom. Join us next time for more insights and inspiration. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep sharing your own story.